Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It is me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we're back again this week for another exciting adventure in the tales of G.I. Joe, real American hero. That's right. It's Joe on Joe Illustrated time, and we're covering G.I. Joe number 139. It's the continuation of the the branding. It's let's call these like the branding wars or the branding era. You know, what WWE had the Attitude Era. This is the branding era because now the Transformers are in the mix. Move over, Ninja Force. Snake Eye. Transformers have usurped you on the cover. And it is exciting, though. I like this issue. I'm just going to come out and say that first. Anytime you get a G.I. Joe Transformer crossover, that makes me excited. I actually did like the execution of this issue, but this cover has got a lot going on. So with that, we're going to get into the regular portions of our show, which we actually, before we start our special, segment.
You were saying?
I want to thank you all for following me on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. It's at Joe on Joe Pod. If you want to send me an email, you can send it to joeonjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know whatever. Let me know your thoughts. We'll start up a correspondence. It'll be like email pen pals. Make it happen. And also, I want to thank everyone who visited our FanCon XR site. There's a VR comic book convention. It's happening on September 24th called FanCon XR. You can go to fanconxr.com to check out the website. Follow it at FanCon XR. That's on the various social medias as well. And you'll see creator announcements and things like that. We're ramping up. We've got it's happening the 24th, so that is like in 10 days. And it's exciting. Some really cool things are getting finalized. It's funny when you're doing if you're planning a live person convention, because of travel and everything, people kind of have to commit at least 3-4 weeks out, like a month out. When you're doing a virtual convention, people can commit last minute. And that's what we're learning with this is that last minute people are saying, yeah, I'd love to join, so we're adding more and more people every day. And the cool thing about being virtual is we can just open up another room and have another panel going on at the same time, and it doesn't cost anybody anything. So it's cool. So it's only growing. It's the very first of its kind. So please, please, please go check it out. I applaud you, and implore you to do that. I also implore you to check out our fabulous sponsor, the Movies and a Meal podcast. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not 2 movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben. And each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. Aren't they grand? So make sure you guys give them a listen and give them a follow and say Joe on Joe sent you. And now,
You were saying?
we are going to be looking at comic books and movies that were on the shelves or in the theaters the month that G.I. Joe 139 was on the stands. So G.I. Joe 139 is cover dated August of 93, and it was calendar dated on the stands in June of 1993. So we're going to look at DC Comics. And DC, if you recall from the last few episodes, DC has been they're in the middle of the death of Superman, and they're also really in the midst of breaking the Batman's back in Batman. So last month they just broke Batman's back. So this month in Batman 498, you've got an empty bat suit, and that's represented by this great Kelly Jones cover with Bane holding the bat suit and Catwoman there. And Batman's missing, because if the story recalls, Azrael didn't take over for a couple. I believe he took over in 490, in 500. So we maybe get 2 months of them figuring it out. When I say Azrael, I mean as bats. And we're not sure if Bruce is going to die, if he's going to be crippled for the rest of life, etc. So that's happening over in the Bat books. It's Batman, Detective, etc. Detective 665. You know what? 665. I believe that is Azrael in the bat suit, the traditional bat suit. That's right. This is actually flooding back to me. I think he wears the bat suit for an issue or so. Then he starts modifying it, and he starts putting on his Azrael outfit over the bat suit and kind of making it his own. And then at 500, we get the full on what would be considered as bats. I believe that's it, because 665 is a horrified Robin while Batman, quote unquote Batman, it's Azrael in Batman's outfit, is beating a guy with a nail studded 2x4, and Robin is looking on in horror. That's a great cover. Really, really is. There's a crossover this month that I want to love, and I just do not. It's the Batman Grendel crossover. It's Devil's Mask and Devil's Riddle. It's a two-parter. It's both by Matt Wagner, and I enjoy Matt Wagner's work. I've enjoyed some Grendel. I haven't read all of Grendel, to be fair, but I have read some Grendel, and I've enjoyed it. I tried to read this miniseries recently. I couldn't get into it. And maybe it was because it was really leaning heavily on the Grendel continuity and Grendel universe, and that just is something I wasn't super familiar with. But I don't know what it was about this. I did not enjoy this crossover. Wagner, I really appreciate as an artist. I love his cover work is great, and his interiors are above par for sure. There's something about this miniseries that I can't recommend it, and it sucks to say that, because it sounds like it's such a great premise. But yeah, it doesn't really hold for me. The other big one this month was Catwoman #1, which is the Jim Balent Catwoman era, and this is the bad girl Catwoman with the big chest era. And wow, did that last a long time. And it was really popular though. And God bless him, Balent made a lot of money, still makes a lot of money doing the, kind of bad girl. Would we say bad girl art? Kind of, yeah, I guess we'd say bad girl art. But yeah, this Catwoman series was really, really popular at the time. And there she is in all her glory, in issue #1, cracking her whip for you. There's also a Green Lantern crossover. So it's kind of company wide, but it's not. And I like these small crossovers that just grab a family of books and do a crossover, and they don't necessarily have to rope in every single book across the continuities, Marvel or DC or whatever. And this is DC Trinity, and it starred the Dark Stars, the Green Lanterns, and Legion. Not Legion of Superheroes, but the Legion 93 team, or the would have been 93, 92, the Legion with Real Jock, the one that took place in the current time. I like this. I can't recall exactly the premise, but I loved that they did this, worked up to this big crossover. This is kind of what, not super recent, but more recently, when Jeff Johns did the Sinestro Corps War, and it was just a big crossover, but it was just a Green Lantern crossover. That kind of stuff I like. Over at Marvel, actually relatively recently, they did, they've been doing a few of these. They do a lot of these in the Spider world for sure, but they did one in the Avengers one where it was the Squadron Supreme came back and like took over the world. And that one was actually, I thought that one was strange because it was pretty massive. The Squadron Supreme rewrote the universe, or the world, the history. And like, it was their world for a brief during this crossover, but it really only crossovered with the Avengers. I was like, that's the kind of crossover that you would think would affect other people, but alas, it doesn't. Anyway, but yeah, so the DC Trinity crossover is out this month. Guy Gardner, we're in the middle of like a Guy Gardner year one over at in his book, titular book, and it's issue number 11, and it's part 1 of 4, and it tells his origin. And I'm a Guy Gardner fan, that is for sure. So that's always a fun book to pick up. Justice League is, then there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of, this really is a lot of that Image-y era of angst and action on the covers, over like kind of storytelling. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of these are the origins of where they started. Oh, speaking of covers, though, Spectre number 9. This is the Ostrander Mandrake Spectre. I will never not say that book is amazing, and that cover is awesome. And when I see these, it just makes me want to read that series. I think I need to dig those back up. And as we talk about Superman, it's in the middle of the death of Superman. Coast City bites it in Superman volume number 80. And so then let's see where they're at in Green Lantern. Then in Green Lantern, they're at 44. So I think it's 2 more issues till it gets reflected in Green Lantern. But yeah, so that's where we're at in the middle of the DCU.
You were saying?
I was saying. And now over at Marvel Comics, as G.I. Joe 139 is sitting on the stands, and you guys are oh, here we go. Morbius Revisited. Because it's Morbius month, everybody. No, it's Morbius Revisited, which I'm fairly positive was a reprint of like old Morbius stories, like starting with his it's actually his Fear stuff. Okay, so they didn't go Spider-Man. They did his stuff from Fear. He had a run in the Fear magazine, and it was like this was from Fear 27. And then like next month probably would have been Fear 28. Yeah, I've read some of those. I got them in a weird, I found an estate, this is a couple years back. I found an estate sale place that were doing comic books. And I took a gamble on a couple. It was okay. It wasn't super economical. But it was because the shipping and processing fees were crazy. I can't remember the name of the joint, but it was some old part of it. The lot I bought was some old issues of Fear, and it had these Morbius stuff. It also had some I don't think it was Fear, but it had some Man-Wolf issues too. Was that was another one of those side Marvel books, but yeah, but it was neat. It was like an estate sale place. So this was from like, I don't know, some estate in St. Louis or something. So there was all this extra on top of it because the estate sale needed to get paid. But then I was always looking for the oddball books that no one else was bidding on and no one else was interested in. And it was like an auction style thing. So I ended up getting stuff like this, like these old Fear issues and stuff. And it ended up probably breaking even. I don't think I got any steals really from it. And the conditions were okay. Anytime you deal with an estate sale place, how am I going to say this? Their representation of the quality of a book is always suspect. I'd never trust any kind of like estate sale place to properly represent the condition of the book. And I don't mean that in a subversive or in a nefarious way. I mean that they're usually not equipped to do that. And I'm not talking about like the heritage auctions of the world. I'm talking about your everyday place. Most of the time, they don't have experts who can look at books and really give you an idea of the condition of them. So, buyer beware in my experience there. But yeah, so Morbius. I say this because, Morbius is streaming and it's taking over the internet once again, because it is streaming on. I guess it's on Netflix now. Yeah, because it's not a proper. Because it's not a proper Marvel product. It's not on Disney. So, yeah. So Morbius is there for you. What else we got? Daredevil Fall from Grace. This is the prologue. This was a cool This is issue 319. And it was my first run-in with Scott McDaniel's work. And I think, he had been drawing Daredevil for a few months prior to this, but I don't think people were paying attention. And then they did this Fall from Grace, which was another kind of a anti-born again, or like an anti-born again kind of story where, he gets everything taken away from him. This was and he comes back. This is just, he gets everything taken away from him. And Scott McDaniel's artwork really popped, and the covers were really great for this. And for quite a while in the 90s, these issues were going for a lot and back issues. And this is one of those collector cases where that was so burned into my brain that these issues were collectible that, 30 years later, in my brain, when I see them, I still go, oh, they're so collectible. And they're not. They're totally not. And that's not because they're not good. It's just because there's just not a demand for them. But it's good. It's a good series. So Daredevil 319, it's the prologue for Fall from Grace. There's a lot of books like that it's a good lesson to break the habit. Like just because you see something once, you really need to keep up with, keep up with the trend, so to speak. Don't in a market like collecting comic books, don't just, that was always so expensive, because it could easily have changed, or that was always nothing. And then you look, I'm getting that a lot, where there's a lot of books where they were absolutely nothing for decades. And now I'm looking, and the going price is $20-$30. Like X Factor 1, I remember, is now, at least guide wise, $20 some. And that must mean people are paying it. And I'm like, that book forever was $4, like forever. So there's a shelf life to everything, and number ones always mean number ones. That's the I think that's the takeaway here. So that's it for that. That's all we're gonna do for Marvel today.
You were saying?
Now we're gonna look at the movie theater, because we righted the ship. So now we know that we're looking at June of 1993. And if you guys remember June of 1993, there is one movie that overshadowed everything. And that is on June 25th, Dennis the Menace was released. Directed by Nick Castle, screenplay by John Hughes, Walter Matthau, Mason Campbell, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, reuniting the Back to the Future crew. Wow, there's a lot of people. Natasha Lyonne's in this. Paul Winfield. That's not the movie. Although that is out on June 25th. No, we're really talking about Jurassic Park, and that's on June 11th. Jurassic Park dropped June 11th, 1993. I think I saw that movie 6 times in the theater, probably. It's so good. It still is so good. I get why it's generationally beloved. So there's not much more I can say about that. But that was on the stands while G.I. Joe was crossing over with the Transformers and the Ninja Force and Cobra. We also had a movie called, so going back a week, on June 4th, it's a movie called Guilty as Sin. I have never seen it, so I cannot tell you good, bad, or ugly. But I will tell you it is directed by Sidney Lumet. And I'm here for that. If you're not a Sidney Lumet fan, I urge you to, it's probably because you've honestly never seen his work, or you've never kind of paid attention to it. I urge you to watch his movies. There's a documentary called By Sidney Lumet. It's from 2015 that kind of covers a lot of them. And as you watch that, you just go, oh yeah, he did everything that was amazing. He really told, most of his stuff was New York centric. So he really just told the story of New York. You're talking movies like what am I thinking? Bummer. Dog Day Afternoon. Sorry. Yeah, total blank there. Yeah, Dog Day Afternoon, which is eminently watchable. He did 12 Angry Men. That's kind of where he first broke. He did Network. He did The Verdict with Paul Newman. He did Prince of the City, which is really, really a great movie. Serpico. What else? Later years, he did Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, which is underrated. He passed in April 2011. And what else? Real quick on the filmography here. Boom, 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 boom. The Pawnbroker, which is actually really good. Oh, was the wrong Child's Play. I was going to say, wait, he directed Child's Play? No, he directed it in 72. He directed a movie called Child's Play. That's a different Child's Play. Network is just all-timer. He did Death Trap and The Verdict in the same year. Death Trap is fabulous. Family Business. I remember. Oh, Sean Connery. Right. The Verdict is so great. Yeah, this Guilty Sin I've never seen. So check out Sidney Lumet. Like, really, I mean it. His stuff is, I mean, his hotspot was 70s and 80s, but just an absolute legend and just genius at his craft. So that came out on April 4th or June 4th. Burp, burp. Jurassic Park, June 11th. June 18th, in a stunning miscalculation, The Last Action Hero opened. Directed by John McTiernan, Die Hard. You know, I love Die Hard. Written by Shane Black. You know, like Schwarzenegger doing a fourth wall breaking meta movie. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's a movie before its time. I think they make this movie maybe I don't know, 10 years later probably would have been too late. Maybe 5 years later. It's a little, I don't know what about this movie didn't hit, but it definitely didn't hit. Like, this definitely was a bomb in the scope of like Schwarzenegger films. You know, like, this was the start of the everything he touches isn't gold. But when you watch it now, you see the really, really good stuff in it. But it opened a week after Jurassic Park. So I got to imagine that hurt this movie quite a bit. I think it was ahead of its time in the meta-ness of it. And that's probably its biggest failing. So, like, if you took the zeitgeist of Schwarzenegger, because it is the right time for Schwarzenegger to make this movie, right? It is the height of him. It is the height of it's time for him to like take the air out of himself. But I think the whole meta-ness of it, I don't think that's the part that was ahead of its time. So if you could take the height of Schwarzenegger and then go ahead 10 years and do this in 2003 with the idea of meta, now you're post Scream, right? I think this movie it's a little bit different, first of all, but it's also better, and it's better, more well received. So maybe not even 10 years, honestly, maybe 5 years, because Scream was 1998. So you do this movie 98 or 99, I think this movie absolute becomes legend. It really does. But then you're also 5 years past this ultra height of Schwarzenegger. So then does that really pop? I don't know. It's weird. That section here is always it really is a fascinating topic for me, because everything about it should be great. And every time I watch it, I just feel let down. But it's not bad. It's just there's something missing. June 25th, as I said, the aforementioned Dennis the Menace. Yeah. And the Sleepless in Seattle. That's pretty big too. So Jurassic Park and Sleepless in Seattle, both in June of 93. Obviously, that's a great movie. What's Love Got to Do with It is fabulous. Angela Bassett playing Tina Turner, and Lawrence Fishburne just absolutely destroying it as Ike Turner. Really a sad movie, but a wonderful movie, like really well made and resonant, and it's a bummer of a story, but then because I love Tina Turner. Who doesn't love Tina Turner? And then it's funny, on the 26th, there's a movie called Extreme Justice with Lou Diamond Phillips and Scott Glenn. And I've never seen this movie, but when I saw it, my first thought was they made a movie of the DC Justice League spinoff comic book.
Now, mass is ready.
So now we're going to dig into G.I. Joe number 139. As I said, the cover is great. So first of all, the cover's great. Chris Batista does the cover, and I'm a fan of Chris Batista. If you're out there listening, Chris, I like your work quite a bit. There's no caveats there. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it since his days on like Steel, which would have been post this issue. I don't think at the time like his name recognized it was on my radar. As I do believe Steel was the first time I remember seeing his work. He did some Legion stuff a little later. I enjoy his stuff quite a bit. He's got a very clean line, a very smooth line, kind of a Alan Davis-y feel to it, without a lot of the without as much of the roundness to the characters, I would say. But he does this cover, and it's great. And it's Megatron smiling at the camera, and he's holding Cobra Commander in his hand. Batista's Cobra Commander looks really, really good. Megatron looks great. I like everything about this cover. Until you get, and well, I'll be honest, I like the way that they incorporated Megatron's head into the trade dress, because his head covers the word Snake Eyes, and then the Transformers pops over his head. It does butt up against Cobra Commander's head. It's almost like a like, you don't very often, you either want it to be a little further separated, or you want his Cobra Commander's head to kind of sit over it. I would have actually pulled it down a little bit and had the Transformers be between Cobra Commander, and so it would have been Cobra Commander at the top, Transformers beneath him, then behind him Megatron, and then behind Megatron the word Snake Eyes. I think that would have been fun. Would have really added an extra layer of depth to this. I don't know if that would have been too much. Maybe they did play around with it. Maybe it just didn't work. But this is that. There's just so much going on with this cover, because it's, again, G.I. Joe starring Snake Eyes and Transformers. So now we've gotten rid of the Ninja Force, and so there's just so much text on the cover. So I am glad that they didn't cover it up with, they didn't add any extra text, any balloons or anything. I also dig this color scheme for Megatron. This is that Transformers fans, don't get me. I'm going to be wrong in a lot of my Transformers references, so I apologize. But this is from the Generation 2 comic book. So I don't know if this is like considered Megatron V2 or V3, but this is when he turns into the tank. So he's green and blue and gray and brownish. If that's not V2, if that's V3 or V4, I apologize in advance. But I'm just going to call it Generation 2 Megatron, because that's what this comic is crossing over with.
Yo, Joe!
So the first few pages of this, though, are not Chris Batista. And if they are, I'd be very, very surprised. So we do have different inkers listed. And so it might be a case of the inking really taking over. But once you get to like page, I don't know, we'll get there when we get there, but it's like page 8 or something. It immediately looks like traditionally Chris Batista's work. So these first few pages still look like Andrew Wildman to me. I gotta be honest. So I don't know if it's, maybe there was some layouts or something that were done, and then the inking came in. I don't know. And to be sad, unfortunately, I'm sorry, listeners, I can't give you a concrete answer here, but first few pages don't look the same, and they only credit Batista on pencils. So, but it really looks and feels like Wildman to me. Yeah. So that might just be the inking. That's just making the connection there. Anyway, open with a big Thathoom and Cobra Commander, who looks, but it looks good. It just looks different. It's not. I'm not saying it looks bad. It just is visibly different. So Cobra Commander's running from an explosion. Remember last time we left, he said he was going to make an offer to Megatron. And Zarana here says, I don't think you can buy off a sentient robot like Megatron, Cobra Commander. The only thing that bothers me that is how do these guys know who he is? Are we saying that the G.I. Joe Transformers crossover was in continuity? Like, do they know Megatron? I'm curious about this. It seemed like it was the first time they were meeting last issue. And maybe in between books, maybe he just introduced himself. So that could easily be explained away. So I'm not calling BS on it. To have Zarana have that information ready at hand was a little surprising. And we see Biggles Jones, Dr. Biggles Jones, is also running away. I wonder if with her, were they going to make her, like, give her a name? Or were they just going to keep always calling her Dr. Biggles Jones?
Yo, Joe!
Because really, it would behoove everybody to just graduate her to a full-fledged member of Cobra and call her I don't know, Serpentra, whatever we want her specialty to be, but get her an easier name than Dr. Biggles Jones every time you have to reference her. So now we have a nice 2-page spread, and this is also Wildman-ish. He had been doing this for the last few issues. Now that could be dictated by Larry's script, so not saying that's it, but it looks good though. I like it, and it's a giant Megatron. He's about half the size of the Silent Castle, and he's taking shots at the front of the castle. It's called Realignments, by script by Larry Hama, Chris Batista pencils, Rick Parker lettering, Baskerville, Williams, Hudson, and Wallace on inks. So we got a lot of people on inks here. So I could definitely see why there would be a difference in the art, but this is a real big shift, and that's where it's throwing me. David Wall is the editor. Bob Sharon and Renee Witterstatter is interesting. It actually lists them as the colorists. Interesting. And Tom DeFalco, I thought Renee were, no, anyway, sorry. Bob Sharon and Renee Witterstatter are the colors, and Tom DeFalco, editor-in-chief. Yeah, and the colors look, I'll bet you they just screwed up with I really do think they screwed up with the front accreditation, with giving credits. I have a feeling that's probably it. And probably Bob Sharon colored the front few pages, and Witterstatter did the back third of the book or so. Because the colors absolutely do look different. And the front colors here look like this all looks like the last previous few issues, so I have a feeling that's what's going on here. But, I don't know. I'm just a dude in an apartment reading a G.I. Joe comic. But Megatron's fighting the castle. Cobra's fighting Megatron. What I love is the really beat up, bashed up look of Megatron. I do have Generation 2 comic books. I have read the smattering of them. I think I'm missing one singular issue, and it's the one big one with G.I. Joe crossover. I think that's why it's a little harder to find. So I don't recall exactly where Megatron was left at the end of the G1 series. However, I'm assuming it wasn't good, because he looks, all this battle damage is not from Cobra. He showed up battle damaged. He looks rough. He is still in his old Mauser handgun mode, so he looks like his traditional G1 look, and he's upset that Cobra tricked him into thinking this castle was another Decepticon. Yo, Joe! And inside the castle, we need to follow up on the Scarlet is a traitor story, because remember, Snake Eyes stabbed her cleanly in order to convince Cobra that she was a bad person. So we got a Meta Viper tending to her wounds. Slice still doesn't trust her. And everyone's panicking because this giant robot is assaulting the castle. And they need to get her to an operating table because she's going to bleed out, and so on and so forth. And she asks Slice, why are you going to save me when moments ago you were willing to let me bleed to death? And he says, I want to keep you alive so I can find out what your real plans are. So Slice is not fooled by this ruse that Scarlet's putting forth, even though she took one for the team. Yo, Joe! Now, this is a cool page with some nice transformation. Another reason to think I don't think Batista drew this, because there's a transformation later in the book that was specifically not great, at least like detail wise. Like, it wasn't super hyper detailed. This transformation looks like the artist, again probably Wildman, is trying to show you the physicality of Megatron going from his robot mode to his gun mode. Which it looks pretty good. And that's always, that's difficult to do. Don't get me wrong. It is, when I really marvel at the modern Transformer artists who are able to capture all those robots, one pretty uniformly, for being what's supposed to be, unmoving metal kind of thing. And then when they transform, the ability to kind of capture their transformation on a page in a comic book moment. It's a real skill. Livio Raimondelli is really great at it. If you've seen his Transformer stuff, and he's always at cons and everything, but his stuff looks always so good. There's a lot of really good Transformer artists out there. So I like this. I like this gun transformation image, I guess, process, whatever, sequence. That's the right word I'm looking for. And what I like is that they shift from, you've got Megatron standing there and he's kind of standing and he's getting hit and you got a blue sky background. And then when he goes into the transforming into the gun mode, even though it's traditional, the panels are all broken. It's not traditional panel breakdowns, but the background changes to the speed lines, right? So this is bringing some of that manga influence and anime influence into the comic book, where instead of drawing the background, everything just goes speed line. So it makes you feel like it's happening in motion and super fast and everything's a blur. That's what's happening here. And so once it pops into the gun, it's finished. And you got, now when he's finished, it's back to reality. So now you've, in this, I guess it'd be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th panel, the bottom lower left panel, speed lines are done, and now the gun is just kind of floating in space. And that, for G.I. Joe listeners, if you don't follow Transformers, they've kind of gotten around the concept that Megatron was a gun, and really sort of should have always had to have been held by somebody to shoot, and he just flies. So he kind of flies, floats around in space. That's been a thing for almost as long as they've been animated / drawn in comic books. So that's what's happening here. So Megatron's just flying in space, shooting things. So he's shooting at the castle with a plasma blast, as Dr. Biggles Jones aptly points out.
Yo, Joe!
What propulsion he uses to float, I have no idea. I can wrap my head around propulsion, different alien energies and propulsions, but he just kind of floats. He's not flying. He's not hovering with rotors. He's not seemingly, there's no exhaust that's seemingly keeping him up afloat. He just kind of floats. But that's what's fun, is it is. And you go, okay, I get it. He also transfers matter too, which takes us back to, I'm not even joking, like the very first few episodes of Joe on Joe, when I was watching the matter transmitter, the Mass Device miniseries. And I don't know if you guys have been listening for that long, if you've ever gone back and listened to the Mass Device. This was me learning how to podcast and learning what the show was going to be. But one of the real early things I twigged on was all the components of the Mass Device. That's very Transformers-esque. Like I think that can easily be written as a backdoor Transformers connection, because it's like shifts matter. It's got like Energon-esque properties, things like that. So who knows? Maybe I was onto something. Anyway, on this page, Biggles Jones is heading to the armory, and if you recall, they had that one HISS tank that they that was outfitted with her the railgun, and so she's making her way to that railgun, specifically that HISS tank with the railgun on it, and she's going to use that railgun to shoot this floating gun Magneto that's happening. I like everything that's going on this page. I like the level of detail of the garage. It's really, really nice. I like the Dutch tilt that they put on it. That adds chaos to it. And we see her going into the target reticule and load projectile and compute firing solution.
Yo, Joe!
Kathoom! And so she shoots from her electromagnetic railgun, and it pierces Magneto. It pierces Megatron right through his body cavity. So it's right through, as the gun, it would be like right above the trigger. And quote, my structural integrity has been compromised. So he reconfigures and goes into full size. And so you see that he's been shot in the chest, basically. And he realizes that the projectile is still traveling into space. And so if that projectile is that potent, and maybe she had it cranked up to 11 versus last issue when she used it, 2 issues ago when she used it on the firing range, whenever that was. Like, what stopped it last time? So if this projectile or railgun is so potent that it fires through Megatron and continues into space past a satellite, How did it stop the previous time? Did it just keep going and hit some mountain somewhere and just drill a giant hole? Or maybe it was set to a lower level. I'll accept the lower level as an answer. Alex.
Yo, Joe!
Megatron's intrigued, though, because he thinks it's beyond any Earth technology. So he wants it. And she continues to fire, and she's shooting through him, and she realizes that he has an integral parts regeneration system. So in other words, he has metal that can heal itself, which is fascinating to her. And Megatron he wants that gun. So he's going to rip her out of the driver's seat and kill her, except someone who's off camera says, I wouldn't be too hasty about smashing the good Dr. Biggles Jones to the floor if I were you, Megatron.
Yo, Joe!
And there's Cobra Commander, who says she happens to be the designer of that weapon in development that you seem to covet, and she hasn't quite debugged it completely. So it's the whole, you got to keep me alive in order for this thing to work, otherwise it's never going to work, and then you're going to be upset that you killed me. Gambit. We've all been there. And Megatron says, you've mentioned a deal. Perhaps a trade is in order. And Megatron offers to trade an entire arc full of Cybertronian technology just for the railgun and a complete refurbishment, refitting, and systems upgrade for himself. That's exciting.
Yo, Joe!
Now we get to a page that is absolutely Chris Batista. He may have done the other pages, and it may have just been the inkers overpowering him. But this is where it feels like Batista takes over, because there's a lot of real smooth lines here. And I know, depending on the inker, that that's a lot of the what you would call a smooth line can often be disguised by an inker doing a lot of hatch work, etc. I get that, but there's just a different feel to it, to my eyes, and different, like the way he draws heads. Batista's characters have a very, I guess I would say, a very square jaw look, like a lot of clenching. There's a lot of like jaw action. And it's good. You're supposed to, they're superheroes, and heroes and all that stuff. And so in villains, so they should look heroic and stuff. And he does that a lot. So he gives a lot of jaw work. And it's funny watching him draw Steel, or watching him draw Destro and Snake Eyes in this. He would go on to draw Steel for a long time. So seeing his Destro is very much like watching his Steel. Seeing this version of Snake Eyes is kind of sort of like watching Steel. I still don't dig this Snake Eyes outfit, though, and that's just more of the outfit, nothing to do with the artists. So high above the Atlantic, we've got the Joe's C-130 getting refueled. We've got an editor's note because it's being refueled by a it says, the editor's note says, the Joe C-130 is the only aircraft capable of being refilled by both Air Force and Navy tankers. They have different, or at least at the time, they had different nozzles or refillable, refill junctures. Why would you possibly have different ones? That seems to me to be one of those like governmental oversight mix-ups. Why would you possibly have two different nozzles for the same military, for the same government's branches of militaries? That seems silly to me, but it is the case apparently. At least it was back then. Hopefully they fixed it. Wild Bill's flying, of course, and it's Wild Bill in his later look where he's kind of got the blue and yellow look. He says we got, does he say how long the flight is? But he's got 4 hours they've got, but they can all enjoy some meals ready to eat. Snake Eyes is examining the blood on his blade, so he's remembering that he had to stab his lady love. And Destro, in a really cool human moment here, reaches out and says, it was dangerous for you to do. I appreciate it. It was the only way to really save her. And he understands that stabbing Scarlet was the hardest thing you ever had to do. So Destro's really trying to be a human here.
Yo, Joe!
And he reaches out to Snake Eyes, and Snake Eyes gives him a look. This is a great panel. The look of Snake Eyes that Snake Eyes gives is, even with that like kind of Jason serial killer face mask that they have on him now, is he will murder you with this look. And he gets up and he just walks away. And Storm Shadow jumps in. And Storm Shadow's lately just been kind of the Snake Eyes translator for the last couple of years, really. But he says, I know what you were trying to do, Destro, but you just forget it. Snake Eyes only understands one thing. If it weren't for you, he wouldn't have had to go in there in the first place. And I don't think that's true. I think she was going undercover anyway. So if it weren't for Destro, Snake Eyes wouldn't have known to go like check her out, because Destro's the one who told the Joes that Scarlet was being tested, right? Destro like tipped off Duke, or Hawk rather, that Scarlet was a part of that test. So then they were able to fake Hawk's death. So it's not really Destro's fault, you know. I'm not defending. Destro's done some bad stuff, but I don't think this one's on him. This one's on Duke, isn't it? Well, this one's not on anyone. They're all soldiers, and she's a big girl. She can deal with herself.
Yo, Joe!
What I'm saying is Snake Eyes is being a pouty pants. So back in Transcarpathia, back at the Cobra Castle, the Silent Castle, they're rebuilding Megatron. So they've got the scaffolding set up. It's a nice fun, almost full page spread. There's a little inset image, and it's Megatron stripped to his core. So it's just exposed wires and things like that. And they got a lot of Cobra technicians working on him. And based on these technicians, he appears to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll throw an 8 in there for additional. He's probably 50 feet tall. If you judge based on the way they're drawing him here, and you kind of, if each Cobra soldier is about 6 foot, there's space for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then yeah. So it's about 50 feet. So Megatron's about a 50-foot tall robot right now, which is kind of neat. I've talked about that before. Where like, if your car transformed, it really wouldn't be 50 feet. Like it would only be about, let's say 20 feet tall, maybe 18, like 15. Like it, your car's not that tall, but it'd be kind of neat. Anyway. Yeah. So they're working on it. We don't yet know what it is.
Yo, Joe!
And while Cobra Commander and Zorana are chatting about it, we see that Megatron is spying on them. So she's saying, hey, while we've got him apart, let's just take him apart. Let's not screw. Why let him push us around? We can rework it so it's in our favor. But he's listening the whole time. So Cobra Commander, for once, is actually smart here. He says, I want to stick to the letter of this deal, at least till we get our hands on all the goodies. And, Megatron is listening to the entire conversation. So he knows they're going to backstab him, etc., and so on and so forth. And then the Vipers are bringing in the railgun, and they're going to replace the main gun in Megatron's battle mode. So that arm cannon is going to be replaced with this Biggles Jones gun.
Yo, Joe!
Now, it's funny that the last panel on that last page, they just show her leaving, leaving the area for no reason. Like, there's no follow-up to where she was going. I guess there was. She shows up in this next page, but it's like, she could just, anyway, it's funny. Like there wasn't anything else to do on that page. So let's just show her leaving. There's no comment. There's no caption, no balloon. So Slice and Dice are with the Meta Viper, and they're checking on Scarlet. They got her all fixed up. She's going to make it. And the Meta Viper says it's parallel to the muscle striation. It's very slight damage, clean cut, no ragged edges, no major arteries, 1 in a million chance. And Slice says more likely an extremely skillful cut executed by a master. And so he still just doesn't trust her. I like the camera. I like the choices. So now we're talking Batista. So we're talking like new artist, new camera choices for his storytelling. I like that he's putting Slice in the forefront here, and he's putting Slice, like Scarlet's there, but it's really, this scene is about Slice and his distrust. So you get him in the top panel. You get this kind of an aside in the second panel. Then you get a nice close up of Slice, and it's tough because Slice doesn't have a face. He's just got that cage over his face, so it's hard to draw any facial emoting. But you bring his hand up and he's pointing right in Scarlet's grill, and he's down there, and then he's distracted by the entrance of Biggles Jones in her like workout gear look, which is weird. And then you cut to a close up of his face. So like that, even without showing his actual facial features, cutting to the close up and putting it at the angle there, that's a sinister look and a sinister angle, and we know that from every other comic book we've read. So that really adds a lot to that moment.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, the Joes have now flown all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. They're taking Destro and the Baroness to Cobra Island. And they land there, and we're getting a little expositional recap of what's been going down on Cobra Island. And basically everyone abandoned it, which is wild. Like, I don't understand why he would abandon Cobra Island. I don't know why Cobra Commander felt he needed to go. They never really gave a great reason. But here in Cobra Island, a Cobra Commander shows up, which is shocking. Destro is taken aback, but then whatever sound effect that was that Zartan used to use, and there's a big flash of light.
Yo, Joe!
And it's biker Mohawk Zartan in his new look. And it's hilarious because he just says, I just couldn't resist. I was gonna, just playing a trick on you. And Destro, what's funny is Destro still says, I still don't recognize this lout. Why is he acting as if we know him? Because it's Zartan's new look, right? This is that V2 look Zartan. This look has grown on me. I wasn't collecting at the time. So the fact that he looked like this escaped me for a long time. Like, man, I read this comic book, but I never remembered that he looked this way in like as a toy or whatever. Like, I never registered. So when I started doing this or this pod, and I was looking at this art and going, when was he? And I didn't like it at first because I love the original Zartan. But this look really has grown on me. I kind of dig it. I really kind of dig it. He changes briefly into his traditional look just to make sure Destro feels a little more comfortable. And they shake hands. They haven't seen each other since Zartan helped save the Baroness back in 118. So that's about 21 issues ago. And now he says, if you don't mind, I'll slip back into my real look, which is the biker look. Like, that's what he's now more comfortable with, which is really funny. And here's Hawk, and Hawk saying, "Hey guys, we have business to do."
Yo, Joe!
So when Cobra Commander left the island, the freighter that had a lot of the bodies, which, he thought had Billy and Dr. Mindbender, Firefly had taken over. Cobra drilled down into it and they lit an oil dome. So they found oil and then they lit it on fire. So it's been burning. I can't recall, as I'm sitting here, did Firefly do this or did Cobra Commander do this? Because all they say is Cobra. So I don't know if this is Firefly or Cobra Commander, but basically all the bodies are just being charred and destroyed. So Zartan points out that he thinks Cobra Commander's up to something. So they all jump on a HISS tank and they drive into town. And he brings them to the brainwave scanner. And he says, before Cobra Commander left, they took Dr. Mindbender's cloning vats. Now, for all you young storytellers out there, this is something that I always struggle with and I wish I was better at when I write, is taking conversations and moving them, transporting them across scenes. You can do it in movies. It's harder to do with live action. I think it is, because you're suspending disbelief that this one conversation has carried, like if it's like someone's stepping on an airplane and then they're having a conversation and then you show them flying and then they're getting off the airplane and they're still having the conversation, or they're getting in their cars and then they're down on Wall Street and they're still having the conversation. And then they're all the way up in their offices, and it's like the conversation. What we're tracking is the same sentence. It's the proper progression of sentences, but they're just shifting locations, right? It's a real weird thing if you really think about that, as far as real life. If you go, well, no, you would have finished the conversation in the car, or that conversation would have ended before you even left the airport, or like that kind of a thing. So things I've written, I've struggled with that, of trying to carry that, but it is a very viable and very valuable storytelling tool, because it takes the reader places faster than any normal real conversation would be. And this whole thing is an exercise in language and transporting people places. And so this is what we're getting on this page, is that we're outside of a burning lava pit. Where the freighter was. We're outside of a burning lava pit, and Zartan starts this supposition of, I think I know what he's up to. Then they get on a HISS tank, they drive all the way into town, and then they get all the way, I'm presuming, into a sub-level dungeon, to finally finish the conversation of saying they also stole Mindbender's cloning vat. Any one of us would have said that when they were still standing at the freighter, right? But it is absolutely and infinitely more interesting to carry that across and transport the viewer into a different locale to further the movement of the story.
Yo, Joe!
And I always note that, and I always remind myself to do more of that because I think it works. You can certainly, you can overdo it, you could do it poorly and all that stuff, but like in my brain, I have things I've written, I just don't do it at all. And I think that's a blind spot. I think that's something that, it's a tool that writers and creators can use, very often a really good effect. So what we've seen here is that Zartan, is reminding us, and there's a lot of this is exposition to catch us up on that cloning vat. That's where he made Serpentor. It's also where he brought Storm Shadow back from the dead. And they're like, well, and this is also actually really timely for those of you following the current J.J. Real American Hero stuff, where they've recently cloned Genghis Khan and brought him back from the dead as the new Serpentor. And Baroness says, but they don't have Dr. Mindbender. So without him to make the equipment work, it's just junk. And he points out, Zartan points out, what if he wasn't? What if they preserved his body alone and took it along with them in the Silent Castle? What if Mindbender, evil genius that he was and oh so very paranoid, was to have left behind a certain computer disk, a single-use disk protected by a complex algorithm that could only be used to revive Dr. Mindbender himself?
Yo, Joe!
I confess, I don't remember any of this from reading it when I was a kid. Man, this is awesome. I don't remember, and I've said this before on the show, I don't remember Mindbender quote-unquote dying. I always thought he just escaped. And then the fact that they cloned him and brought him back I don't remember that being a thing. So I'm really enjoying revisiting this. So now back at the Silent Castle, we get a green and kind of purple blue camouflage tank rolls out, and it's squaring up against some Hiss tanks. And just a quick series of shots takes these Hiss tanks out with like one shot per tank. And it is Megatron squaring off against these Hiss tanks.
Yo, Joe!
Just kind of a real quick example. Everyone's clapping, everyone's applauding. Way to go, splendid. Biggles Jones, you've made Megatron a happy camper. And this is the transformation scene that I think is evidence that I don't think Batista drew the previous one, because there was this is very vague and kind of breakdownish, like it's just, if you see it, you'll see what I'm saying, where it just goes really rough, sketchy, like it's such a blur, it's happening so fast, it's too fast for human eyes, where the previous transformation was pretty detailed and slow-mo, and you could see the gun moving in different areas, to transform. So I get the feeling that's one of the signals that it wasn't the same artist, but it's Megatron transforming.
Yo, Joe!
So now he is in his new battle mode. And he looks good. This is the Megatron as a tank look. I don't know if people liked this. I don't know if people hated it. I think it's fun. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to be a tank. That Hiss tank Megatron is either, did it drop? I haven't gotten mine yet, but it's about to drop from Hasbro. That's exciting. Speaking of Megatron and transforming. So he is saying, I'm ready to go. You guys did a great job. Let's kill some people.
Yo, Joe!
And meanwhile, he also says that he's aware of this little experiment you have going in the basement. And he points out that he can sense that there is inert tissue percolating, not periodic. My God, my eyes are terrible. Percolating in an electrolyte-rich protein bath with a pure oxygenating system. He can smell it and hear it and see its infrared signature. And there he is. Dr. Mindbender just started breathing. So Dr. Mindbender has woken up. Now, whether he was cloned or whether they just regrew his body, maybe we'll find out next issue. I'm not sure. But with the best part about this is if he was cloned, they were able to clone his mustache perfectly. And if it's the same body that's regrowing, that means Dr. Mindbender must have had some kind of electrolysis on the rest of his face, because he has no other facial hair other than that mustache. It's fabulous. And that's it for G.I. Joe 139, everybody. No letters page. Just an ad for the Marvel Secret Defenders, which was not good. Featuring Doctor Strange, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, both Ghost Riders, Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch, Darkhawk, and what's that guy? Part of the Wolverines team. What is his name? He had a short-lived series. I used to have it. Anyway, the other guy from the X-Books that was a part of Wolverine's mercenary teams. Anyway, it was not a great team, but it was a team that Doctor Strange would put together all the bad guys that he, the bad dudes, so to speak, that he needed to get a mission done. And it was difficult. A difficult book to get through. Anyway, that's it for G.I. Joe 139. I really like this issue. I thought incorporating G.I. Joe was great, or in Transformers into G.I. Joe. I thought it worked really well, seamlessly here. They are, there is a familiarity, so I wonder if they were operating under the kind of the loose circumstances that the previous crossover happened. It's just they never really acknowledge it. Just remember, Larry never wrote the previous crossover. I think I've heard him say that he's never even read it, or I've read that he's said that he's never even read it. So I'm not sure the status of that. So it feels like there's a loose acknowledgement, but without any of the details. Because remember, that one also had Hawk had a romance with a state senator or something like that. Anyway, I dig it. G.I. Joe 139 starring Snake Eyes and the Transformers. They're really throwing everything against the wall, and I'm here for it. And I want to thank you all for being here for me. And now you, Joe. Joeing is half the battle.